We'd only been in the house a week when the first strange thing happened. It was late, the kind of late when silence settles over everything. My wife, Sarah, and our twin daughters, Lily and Emma, were asleep upstairs. I was still unpacking boxes in the living room, surrounded by the dull hum of a house not yet ours. The sound started as a faint tapping. At first, I thought it might be branches brushing against a window, but the rhythm was too deliberate, too precise. Tap, 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 pause, tap, tap. It seemed to come from above, maybe the attic. I froze, every instinct telling me to brush it off as old house noises, creaking wood settling into place. But the tapping continued, insistent now. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight, the beam slicing through the dark as I climbed the narrow staircase to the second floor. The attic door was at the end of the hall, just above the twins' room. I hesitated, hand hovering over the cord to pull the ladder down. A sudden gust of cold air brushed past me, and the tapping stopped. Silence. I told myself I imagined it and backed away. But as I turned to head back downstairs, I caught something from the corner of my eye. The cord to the attic door swayed, back and forth, though I hadn't touched it. The house had seemed like a dream at first. It was big, old and charming in that way Sarah loved. Original wood floors, antique fixtures, and just enough wear to feel like it had a history. "Think of the memories we'll make here," she'd said, running her hand along the banister as if imagining our family growing old within its walls. The girls loved it too. They had their own room, a sprawling backyard, and countless nooks to explore. I wasn't as enamored. Something about the place felt off. It wasn't anything I could put my finger on, just a sense that we weren't alone, even when we clearly were. The attic in particular unnerved me. It was small and cramped, with a single dusty window at the far end that barely let in light. When we'd first moved in, I found an old trunk up there, packed with faded toys, wooden blocks, a headless doll, a ball that had once been painted with bright patterns, but was now worn smooth. Sarah said it was quirky, but I hated the way those toys seemed to be waiting for someone to come back. Still, I didn't mention the tapping to her. Sarah had a way of dismissing things like that, chalking them up to my overactive imagination. "Old houses make noise," she'd say. And maybe she was right. But then Lily and Emma started talking about the boy. It was subtle at first, dropped into conversations like they were describing a new friend at school. "The boy likes this," or "the boy says that." When I asked who they were talking about, they'd giggle and shrug it off. "Just the boy, Daddy," Emma said one morning, as if I were the silly one for asking. Sarah thought it was cute, chalking it up to the twins' vivid imaginations. But I wasn't so sure. There was a seriousness in their tone when they spoke about him, as if they weren't pretending at all. One evening, I found Lily sitting on the bottom step of the attic ladder, staring up into the dark. "What are you doing, sweetheart?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. She turned to me, her little face serious. "He's sad," she said. "Who?" "The boy." I swallowed hard. "Why is he sad?" She tilted her head as if listening to something I couldn't hear. "Because they forgot about him." After that, the boy became a constant presence in our lives, even though Sarah and I never saw or heard him. Lily and Emma, however, spoke about him like he was part of the family. "He doesn't like the light," Lily told me one day as I opened the curtains in their room. "It makes him hide," Emma chimed in. "He likes when we play upstairs. He said it's his favorite place." I tried to tell myself it was just a game. Kids had imaginary friends all the time. But things started happening. Small, unexplainable things that made it impossible to ignore. The attic ladder would be down when I was sure I'd put it up. toys from the old trunk appeared in the girls' room, even though I'd locked the attic door. Once, I found the headless doll sitting upright on the kitchen table, its neck tilted toward me as if it were watching. "Sarah, we need to talk about this," I said one night after the girls were asleep. She sighed, closing the book she'd been reading. "About what?" "The imaginary boy again." "It's not just that," I said. "There's something wrong with this house. I feel it. The tapping, the toys." "Tapping?" she interrupted, raising an eyebrow. I froze. I hadn't told her about that. "It's probably nothing," I muttered, but she caught the hesitation in my voice. "You're scaring yourself," she said, placing a hand on my arm. "You've been stressed with the move. Let's just take a breath, okay? This house is old, but it's not haunted." Her reassurance didn't help. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening for the tapping. It didn't come, but something else did. Around 3 a.m., I woke to the sound of a ball bouncing upstairs. It was faint, but unmistakable. Thump, thump, thump. My heart pounded as I crept out of bed, careful not to wake Sarah. At the bottom of the attic ladder, I hesitated. The cord swayed gently, though there wasn't a draft. I pulled it, and the ladder unfolded with a groan. The attic was darker than I remembered, the single bulb casting weak yellow light. The ball was at the far end, rolling lazily in a slow circle. I walked toward it, each step creaking beneath my weight. As I reached down to pick it up, I felt a rush of icy air and heard a whisper. Soft, faint, but undeniably a child's voice. "Don't leave me." I spun around, my flashlight beam darting across the attic. There was no one there, just the toys, the trunk, and the shadows that seemed to stretch a little too far. When I turned back, the ball was gone. The next morning, I found muddy footprints leading from the attic ladder to the girls' room. Small, childlike footprints, as if someone had walked barefoot across the floor. They stopped just outside their door. I'd checked the attic the night before. No one could have been up there. Lily and Emma were sitting on their beds, drawing in notebooks. "Who was in here last night?" I asked, trying to keep the panic from my voice. They exchanged a look. Then Emma said, "The boy wanted to say hi." "Did he come into your room?" Lily nodded. "He stood right there." She pointed to the corner of the room. "He said he missed having a family." I felt a chill crawl up my spine. "Lily, Emma, if you ever see him again, you need to tell me, okay? It's very important." They nodded solemnly, but I could tell they didn't understand. To them, the boy wasn't a ghost. He was just there. The strange occurrences escalated. Doors would slam on their own, and lights flickered whenever I was near the attic. One night, as I stood brushing my teeth, I heard a faint whisper. "Let me out." My pulse quickened as I turned off the faucet and stepped into the hallway. Suddenly I froze. Paint on the walls began to peel and scrape, as if invisible hands were clawing at it, leaving deep, jagged streaks in their wake. The sound was deafening like nails on a chalkboard, and the sight left me rooted in terror. I stumbled back, my toothbrush dropping to the floor. When I looked again, the wall was clean. The final straw came when I heard Emma crying in the middle of the night. I rushed to their room to find her sitting upright in bed, clutching her blanket. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" I asked, kneeling beside her. She sniffled and pointed toward the door. "He wants me to go with him," she whispered. My blood ran cold. "Go where?" "Upstairs," she said. "He says it's better there." I couldn't breathe. My mind raced, trying to make sense of what Emma had just said. He wants me to go with him. I heard the words echo in my mind, louder than any whisper from the attic. This wasn't a child's imagination. It wasn't a game. Something was wrong with that boy, something dangerous, and I had no idea how to protect my family from it. Emma, listen to me, I said, trying to sound calm even though my heart was pounding. You're not going anywhere. Not upstairs. Not anywhere. But Emma only stared at me with those wide, innocent eyes. He says I have to. He says it's my turn. She clutched her blanket tighter, her knuckles white. My gaze flickered to Lily, who sat frozen at the foot of the bed, her face pale. She didn't speak. She didn't move. She simply looked at the door, her eyes wide with fear, as though she could see something I couldn't. I was on the verge of panic, but I forced myself to focus. Sarah, I called out, my voice shaking. She came rushing into the room, her face full of concern. What's going on? Is she okay? Sarah asked, glancing between me and Emma. I looked back at Emma, then at Lily, and something in my gut twisted. There's something upstairs. Something wrong. I don't know what it is, but I think it's after them. My words felt hollow, a desperate attempt to explain something I didn't fully understand myself. Sarah looked skeptical. You're scaring them. They're just kids. Sarah, listen to me, I snapped, my voice breaking. You don't understand. I've heard it. The tapping, the whispers. I saw it, right here last night. The ball, the footprints in the hall. They're not imagining it. There's something in this house, and it's not a game anymore. The silence between us felt thick, suffocating. Sarah didn't answer at first, her eyes flicking nervously to the attic door. Her face went pale, and she finally nodded. I'll get the girls dressed. We're leaving. Now. We rushed through the house, gathering what we could, the weight of my every step heavier than the last. My heart drummed in my chest. I was doing everything I could to get them out of here, but every instinct told me the danger was still very real, lurking just around the corner. As we reached the front door, I heard it again, the tapping. It was louder now, more frantic, as though it was desperate, insistent. Tap, 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 pause, tap, tap. I froze in my tracks. It wasn't coming from the attic this time, it was from the hallway. I looked at Sarah. Her face mirrored my own horror. We have to leave, she whispered, barely audible. But as we turned to leave, something in the hall caught my eye. A shadow. A small figure just beyond the doorframe. A child, standing motionless in the darkness, staring directly at us. Lily gasped. It's him, she whispered, her voice trembling. The boy. My breath caught in my throat. The boy. He was here, and he wasn't a figment of their imagination anymore. The shadow in the hall shifted, slowly advancing toward us, and my instincts screamed for me to run. But I couldn't move, couldn't think. The figure emerged from the darkness, its features hidden in the dim light, but its presence was unmistakable. Daddy, Emma's voice quivered beside me. He's here to take us. I turned to face the doorway, ready to do anything to protect them. But before I could act, the attic door flew open with a deafening bang, and a cold gust of wind slammed into us. The figure in the hall stepped forward, its form growing more distinct. I could see it now, the face, pale and gaunt, with hollow eyes and a twisted, hungry smile. It was the boy, but it wasn't just the boy. The thing in the hallway was an empty shell. The boy had died, but his spirit had never left this house. He was not seeking playmates or friends. He was seeking someone to take his place. The floor beneath us creaked, and a cold hand reached out, clawing at the air between us. I grabbed Sarah,
pulling her back as the shadow advanced, its form distorting and shifting, stretching impossibly wide. The walls seemed to close in around us. "Run!" I shouted, my voice raw.
We didn't need any more words. Sarah bolted toward the door with the girls, but I couldn't move. Something held me back, pulling at my legs, like invisible hands clutching my ankles. I twisted, trying to break free, but the weight of the house seemed to have a grip on me. I turned to see the boy, standing now at the edge of the hallway, his eyes locked onto mine. His grin widened, and I felt the ice coldness creeping into my chest. "Don't leave me," he whispered, his voice more distant now, as if it was coming from somewhere deep beneath the house. Then, in a burst of terror, I yanked myself free and ran for the door. As I stepped outside into the cold night air, the door slammed shut behind me. I didn't look back. We never returned to that house. The next morning, the movers were there, clearing out the last of our things. I looked up at the house one last time, my heart still pounding in my chest. The attic window was open, and in the reflection of the glass, I could have sworn I saw a pair of eyes watching me. But I didn't go back inside, and I didn't let my family anywhere near that place again. Some houses aren't meant to be lived in. Months have passed since we left that house behind. But there are nights when I still wake up in a cold sweat, heart racing, memories of those eyes in the attic window flashing behind my eyelids. The house we moved into afterward is quiet, normal. Nothing like the oppressive weight of the old place. We've unpacked, settled in, and life is moving forward. But I can't shake the feeling that we're being watched. It's subtle, like a shadow that shifts in the corner of your vision, always just out of reach. Every creak in the floorboards, every gust of wind, makes me tense, expecting something to follow us. It's irrational, I know, but I can't help it. The girls are happy, playing outside in the new yard, their laughter echoing through the house. They've never mentioned the boy again. Sarah, too, seems to have put it out of her mind. She talks about the new house as though it's a fresh start for all of us. And maybe, for her, it is. But I can't forget. One evening, after the girls have gone to bed, I'm sitting alone in the living room. The house is quiet, the way it should be. But then I hear it, faint at first, like something brushing against the wall. Tap, tap, tap. It's coming from above me, from the attic. I stand frozen for a moment, my breath catching in my throat. I tell myself it's nothing. It's an old house. The wood settles. I hear the same noises every night. But then I hear it again, louder this time. The tapping grows more insistent, a rhythmic pattern that's impossible to ignore. Tap, 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 pause, tap, tap. My skin prickles, and the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. The house feels cold all of a sudden, colder than it should be. I get up, heart pounding in my chest. My legs feel heavy as I move toward the stairs, toward the attic door that we never use. I hesitate, the weight of the moment pressing down on me. I know I shouldn't go up there. I know the danger that lurks behind that door, in that place we fled from. But I can't stop myself. The attic door is just as I remember it, old and worn, the same cord hanging down. I reach up to pull it, and as the ladder unfurls, I feel a chill that sinks deep into my bones. I hesitate again, but only for a second. I climb the stairs slowly, my flashlight beam shaking as I move deeper into the attic. The shadows feel thicker here, more oppressive. The smell of dust and old wood fills the air. But there's something else now. Something darker, like something has been waiting for me. And then I see it. At the far end of the attic, the old trunk is there, just as it was before. The same toys are scattered around it. Wooden blocks, the headless doll, the worn ball. But something is different. There's a figure standing in front of the trunk, its back turned to me. I freeze, my blood running cold. The figure doesn't move. It's still. But I know who it is. The boy. I can't breathe. My body refuses to move, but my mind screams at me to run, to get out of there. But before I can take another step, I hear it. A voice, soft and childlike, just behind me. Daddy, don't leave me. I turn, but there's nothing there. Only the darkness. Only the oppressive silence. I turn back to the trunk, but the boy is gone. The attic is empty. I stagger back toward the ladder, my heart pounding in my chest. As I climb down, I hear one last whisper, just before I slam the door shut behind me. Not this time. I don't know how long I stood there, trying to shake the feeling that something was following me, but the door to the attic stayed closed. I couldn't bring myself to open it again. And that's when I realized, some things follow you. They don't stay in one place. No matter how far you run, no matter how many times you move, they'll always find you. The boy never left the house. And now, he's with me.